Hey everybody, and welcome to Week 3, Assignment 3, Video Critique. Hey, it's me, Colin, once again, here to conduct your critique and to talk about your images. This time around we did panorama images, and we're going to be looking at Julie's work, at Becky's work, and at Jesse's work. So without further ado, let's get to it. So up here first. Alright, let's look at Julie's work. We'll start by looking at her contact sheet. And we're going to go over the contact sheets fairly briefly, simply because it'd be like looking at a single piece of a jigsaw puzzle. That piece itself is not really going to represent everything that's happening. So I'm really just going to kind of bounce through these just fairly rapidly, just to kind of get a sense of what we're working with here with Julie's images. So I'm kind of seeing just like water and land. Again, like even just like as an individual image, this is really pretty nicely done. You know, you have sort of 2/3 land, 1/3 sky, so it's a pretty tight composition already. Same here, although I would say that other group had slightly better composition just in terms of the individual frames. So that's what we're looking at. And let's bounce over to Julie's final images here. Oh. What's happening? Oh. Alright, for some reason that just kind of stalled out. Okay, here we go. So, what we have here is an image that I think is actually fairly successful. I do like just the number of sort of longer horizontal elements that she's working with here. The fence, the road in the foreground, and just, you mean the horizon itself. I don't even know that it's really even an issue, but I do wish that the horizon was slightly, or just the road itself, I guess, because the horizon was slightly straighter. But no, I feel like that's pretty a fairly successful image here. Let's pop over to the next one. So, you know, this is the one that I was talking about earlier that I thought had a slightly stronger composition. Oop. Whatever reason, it keeps stalling out when it opens these things. Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty tight right there. And then, yeah, that same thing, only more of a sepia. Now, I feel like there was more images. But I would say I do think that this one that we're looking at here is actually a fairly strong image. Once again, you know, it is pretty much monochromatic, so you do get emphasis on texture, emphasis on formal elements, and it really has some strong stuff happening here. Oops. It did it again. That's fine, because I'm going to wait a second, and then, yes, okay. So what I like, nice textures here. I like the way that these big round hay bales are like sort of right on the horizon. It gives kind of a nice, it's a nice visual element to play with, and it's sort of reflected. You have these more or less circular things reflecting that form, also reflected in these rocks. I think, again, I mean, really nice composition. You definitely get a sense of the scope or the sweep here by this really long horizontal image. And yeah, I actually think this is one of the more successful images this time around. So very nice job, Julie. I'm gonna give you a little. That's a little hand there for your very nice work. And I'm gonna go ahead and just gonna close these. And let's move on to Becky's work here. Okay, so again, just as with Julie's work, we're going to kind of just quickly bounce through these and kind of get a sense of what the individual frames look like before we go excuse me, into her final 2 images. Now, that is a super, super long horizontal panorama. Now, obviously, from your reading, you guys know that there's 2 ways to do this. There's the horizontal images making, a big long horizontal like this, and then there's the vertical images that make horizontal. Now, with the vertical, you're definitely not going to get something this long. But a lot of people I know actually prefer the vertical because you get, because of the way that that your lens is shaped and the way that it registers on the sensor, you actually get less spatial distortion when you do the vertical ones. Not that that's really an issue here. This is another one. I can feel for you guys because it can be really hard to get like a really straight level horizon with some of these shots, because any individual one can be, for example, all of the individual ones are more or less have a straight horizon, but if it's even off like a little bit, when they all get put together it sort of gets exaggerated. But yeah, pretty good, pretty seamless. There's just a slight darkness here. Now sometimes that comes from not having enough overlap, or sometimes that comes from having, if you look at these 4 frames, you can see that this one is slightly darker. Sometimes if you don't put your settings all in manual and sort of leave them there, if your settings are, say, on program mode or auto mode, and a cloud passes over the sun or something, it tends to do that. It'll make 1 frame, or sometimes as many as 2 frames, look slightly darker. Or even if you just have more dark stuff in an image, it can do that, or more light stuff even. It can affect, make a frame lighter or darker than the rest. Now this came out pretty good. Between the 2 versions, I like this one better. I think that the color is more successful, which might come as a surprise to some of you, because in general I tend to favor the black and white version, because I'm a big fan of images that emphasize, or that are strongly, not necessarily about, but strongly focused on formal qualities. But with this, I really feel like the colors are adding something to it. And even the colors, it's not like a bunch of bright colors that are really clashing. It's like a nice sort of serene blue and a serene green, kind of earth colors. I think the earth tones just work nice on this image. So nice job, Becky. And then last but not least, let's look at Jessie's and see what she has going on here. Okay. So this is this is her panorama. Just right off the bat, I gotta say I like what's happening here. I feel like there's really kind of there's a strong kind of sense of place. It feels like this could be maybe the street that she lives on, or maybe it feels like someone shooting a place that's familiar or somehow comfortable. Excuse me. Oh, and then infrared. Hard to tell. That's not really screaming infrared to me, but yeah, usually with infrared you get more in the areas that are green. You tend to get a little bit more of these tend to go more white. But let's take a look. Let's keep going here. Let's see what this is. Added saturation. Excuse me. Still getting over a little bit of a cold. Well, let's keep going and come back to this. And then last but not least, we have, okay, so this is the original. We have to add a saturation, and this is the infrared. Boy, that's tough. I think between the three versions, I do like the black and white best, which probably is not a surprise. One thing that I think is really interesting here is, if you look at the perspective of from where this is shot, this is actually like sort of standing on the road leading off into, let's say, home. It's kind of a interesting way to structure a photo, because you sort of, it puts you in really in the spot of someone who is entering the scene, and kind of it's like you see the path ahead of you. You're going to follow it into the scene, and it's really like, I mean, basically you're standing right in front of it, like entering. I think that's interesting to think about in terms of like that as a theme, like what that does to your viewer. It sort of is like inviting them into the image. And you have what is a pretty like a domestic scene. Like you have the cars, it sort of feels like, come on into this neighborhood where you will, come on home, kind of a vibe. So that's something to think about if for you guys, depending on how much you actually think about like what your images are conveying, or sort of what messages you may be consciously or unconsciously sending to the viewer with your images. That's something to think about. But yeah, I sort of like, there's something inviting about it. Like, this road leads down here, and there's trees and the houses. There's just something, I don't know, maybe it's just resonating with me because it's somewhat reminiscent for me of where I grew up. So I don't know. It's got kind of a rural feel, which I can relate to. Let's see here now. And then we looked at everything. Oh, look at that! I almost forgot one. I would still say that first one is my favorite. Although this is definitely an interesting effect. This is like a selenium, or oh, it doesn't really say. But yeah, no, I think that these different ones have sort of various things going from. This is tough because this is one where you're going to have a lot of blue because of the time of day that you're shooting. I do think that you can kind of balance some of this out with like white balance. Maybe really kind of crank it up. Even use like a like the tungsten setting if you were really trying to balance out a lot of this blue. I would say that's tough because we talked real recently about using white balance creatively. Back like 2 weeks ago. And this blue would sort of suggest to me like a coldness that I don't necessarily think the rest of the image with its green grass and whatnot is sort of conveying. So I might potentially, with something like this, go in and try and use color balance to maybe just bring some of that blue down a little bit. But anyway, so now is the time in the video where I give you the phrase to use to let me know that you watched the entire video, I guess. So the phrase this time around is going to be floor lamp. I obviously didn't think of anything in advance, so I just looked around the room until I saw something that would work. Excuse me. So, yeah, go ahead and respond to this. Type the words floor lamp somewhere into your response to let me know that you watched the whole thing, and I can give you that the full credit for participation. So, yeah. Until next week's video critiques, yeah, I will see you around and keep shooting, guys.